Hey everybody, it is Professor Hatch, and I'm here to talk about the big ugly research paper, which as you can see, I've cleverly titled Research Paper. In this paper, you're going to be looking at identity, representation, and stereotyping. And all of the instructions here under the assignment will be gone over in the procedure section in much greater detail. But the basics of this is you need to identify a community or a group that you belong to. You need to discuss how that group is represented in the media. And just real quick, under the please note section here, you'll see that it says for the purposes of this essay, the word media can refer to news media, entertainment media, or social media. So you're going to discuss how that group is represented in the media, and then you're going to identify 1 to 2 real world problems caused by that portrayal. You're going to propose no less than 2 solutions to prevent these problems from happening, and finally choose one of those solutions as the best solution. Um, So, using myself as an example, I'm a middle aged dude. I'm a white guy. I'm a dog owner. I'm a homeowner. I'm an educator and a comic book nerd, video game nerd, film buff, poet, husband, teacher, blah, blah, blah. Come to think of it, I think teacher and educator are the same thing. Whatever, though. Any of those things is a group that I belong to, right? And there's a bunch more that is hardly a complete list. So I need to identify which one of those I want to talk about in the scope of this essay if I'm going to be writing this essay. So, assuming I go with the example of teacher, then I could look at how that group is portrayed in TV shows. How are teachers portrayed in TV shows like Abbott Elementary or in any of the million movies that have been made about teachers? What did they get right? What did they get wrong? Um, I've only seen a couple episodes of Abbott Elementary. It seems I've never worked in K through 12, but it seems to kind of hit the nail on the head. But like, oh my God, of all the movies they have made about, it's usually like high school teachers, or college. There's very few that I can think of that are college teachers. But it's always like, especially there's like in back in the 80s and 90s, especially there were like two kinds of teacher movie. There was the white savior teacher, who was a white man or woman coming in to a inner city school to teach these underprivileged kids, and and they showed them the possibility of blah blah blah. It was, I don't know. There's one I'm thinking of especially where like they'd never even read a book, like the students, which is ridiculous. The idea that none of them had ever read a book. I know, like, whatever, book reading might not be as popular as it was before we had TV, but the idea that no one had ever read a book by the time they're in high school, I find that hard to believe, at least for an entire class full of people. In any case, so there's that white savior thing, which is a bunch of crap. And then there's also the other kind, which was almost always a white guy, almost always ex military, who took a job at an inner city school where the schools were being, run. They were running wild with drug dealers and criminals and blah blah blah, and the teachers basically beat the hell out of the kids in their classroom, which I don't even understand what that fantasy is about. It's incredibly stupid. So I personally have big problems. Teaching movies almost always suck because they're almost always being made by people who aren't teachers. And so I could talk about for a while. I could talk about all the various things I don't like about the way teachers are portrayed in the movies. Um, a little less so with TV shows, but I could probably think of a few examples if I tried. Anyway, what did they get right? What did they get wrong? You need to focus on that. And by the way, I want to point out that for all of these things in bold here, that's one paragraph you need to write, or sometimes 1 to 2. So if you look, identify a group you belong to, that's one paragraph. How is that group been portrayed in the media? 1 to 2 paragraphs, tops. What are some real world problems of that portrayal? 1 to 2 paragraphs, one per, I would say 1 paragraph per problem. Um, how can these problems be prevented? 1 paragraph per solution, 2 paragraphs total required, 2 paragraphs total. And then finally, which of those solutions is the best solution? That's 1 paragraph. So you are looking at a minimum of 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 body paragraphs plus your intro and conclusion. So it's going to be a total of 8 paragraphs. Um, but let's continue with this. So, what are some real world problems? Okay, so obviously, as a middle aged white man, that's a community I belong to that doesn't really. I can't think of a single problem caused by media portrayal of middle aged white guys. Maybe, but I can't think of any. And I tried. I spent some time trying. So for this essay, I would clearly have to focus on a different group I belong to. And obviously, there's a lot of negative talk about teachers in various news outlets. There's the previously mentioned problems of the white saviors or the, I don't know, vigilante badass teachers who beat up their students. God, it's so stupid. I have problems with that, and I think that they might contribute to maybe a negative impression of teachers. Uh, Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't. I don't think so, but maybe. In any case, I would focus on that community because, as a white man, I can't think of any misrepresentation that happens in media. In any case, whichever group you choose to focus on, um, you need to look at whether or not people who belong to this group are being treated differently by the public based on the media portrayal. Are there any negative consequences? And one of the examples I could think of was what happened to Asian people during the pandemic, how hate crimes against Asians rose during the pandemic because our president at the time, and hopefully he will remain our former president, uh, instead of calling it the coronavirus, called it the China virus or various other stupid terms that led to an uptick in Asian targeted hate crime. Anyway, do people have a general misunderstanding about the people who belong to that group? I'm sure you can think of other problems caused by media representation. I'll let you contemplate that on your own time. How can these problems be prevented? So, using the Asian targeted hate crime during the pandemic example from above, what would some solutions be to combat this problem? And, maybe people who are in power should be held accountable, like legally accountable for their speech. Or maybe media outlets like ABC News or whatever should be held accountable for broadcasting irresponsible public speech of those in power. And maybe there's another solution entirely. And then which of these solutions is the best one? So, from the example I gave in the previous section, uh, there are arguments for and against both of them. Some people could claim that holding people in power accountable for their speech would be a violation of our right to free speech. Holding media outlets accountable could be seen as a violation of the freedom of the press. However, not all speech is guaranteed under the law, like yelling fire in a crowded building could potentially cause loss of life. And also, hate speech is a crime. You're not allowed to walk around screaming out hate speech. So maybe the best solution between those two is the first one, where we hold people accountable for their speech, especially people in power, because there's already legal precedent for holding individuals accountable for their speech. Or maybe it comes down to an issue of money. Which solution is cheaper? Or maybe it's a matter of which solution is easiest to put into action. Or maybe it's a matter of which solution has the longest lasting impact, the greatest impact at achieving change. There are any number of reasons why one solution might be better than another. What you're doing here is making a choice and logically justifying it. This is the paragraph where you're going to be showing your critical thinking skills in action. Why is the one solution better than the other? Okay, and then just a few things to go over here. The student essay template, as always, is available for your use. And please, 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 please take advantage of that, especially if like MLA formatting is something that you struggle with. Um, Under the requirements section, we're looking at a minimum of 1,500 words. You're looking at 8 paragraphs total. That should not be a problem. So 1,500 words, 2,000 words max. Please don't write more than 2,000 words. I have just so many essays to grade. Plus a works cited page. And then you need no less than 5 sources, 3 of which have to come from scholarly peer-reviewed journals. Click on this link for how to find scholarly peer-reviewed journals and the articles contained therein. And then the rest of which must come from reliable journalism sources, which again, please click on that if you're confused about what that means. At this point, though, if you've worked on the previous essays, you're more than familiar with all this stuff. Your intro paragraph must end with a thesis statement that clearly identifies the community you're going to focus on for this essay, at least one problem caused by media representation of this community, and that proposes two solutions to prevent these problems from happening. So an example thesis statement would be, teachers are often portrayed in media as, I don't know, white saviors, which leads to problems of blank and blank. And then, two solutions for combating these problems are blank and blank. And you do not need to identify in the thesis which of those solutions is the best one. That's for later on. But your thesis does need to clearly state which group you're looking at, what problems are caused by media representation of that group, and two problems, or I should say two solutions. And it literally can be as brief as what I have here in this example. It does not have to be a long, long thesis statement. Okay. The essay should follow the guidelines detailed in the procedure section above. And then the rest of this is all standard, college level grammar, spelling, blah, blah, blah. This essay should follow the rules for MLA formatting. So here's the Purdue OWL website for that, or just use the student template. And then the rest of this is all standard, and there's where the video is going to be. I think that's everything that needs to be said. Of course, there is a longer video waiting to be made for the outline, which I'm going to do right now. So I will I will see you in the outline video. Bye.